Good morning to all our Atlas Pro Plus and Platinum Diamond contractors. Hope you guys are doing great today. Thanks so much for joining us for our October webinar. Super excited to see you and have you on. Go ahead and put something in the chat and let us know that you can hear us and see us. It is cold. It's fall, y'all. Who all is excited about some fall time? I know I am. I love to get on a nice sweater, and you know, it's good for roofing too, because you're not out in that hot heat all summer that you guys are probably over. Good morning, Dominic. Thank you for jumping in to say good morning. Glad you're here. Thanks for joining this month. Let us know in the chat where you are, and good morning to all of our family, Asphalt Life family that's watching via Facebook this morning. Glad to see you. Glad you're on. Awesome. Good morning. Great. Well, I just wanted to say good morning to you all. This webinar is super exciting. We have some great panelists. We've partnered with John Dye with Art of the Supplement this month to do a part 2 of our supplementing series. This is a topic that, yeah, you all have been asking about, and I know it's important to your businesses to be able to have successful supplementing game, be it not to be able to pay yourselves and make sure that you are getting all of the money that you can off of each job, because as we all know, overhead is important to make sure that you can cover it. And so thank you all for joining today. Excited. I'm Tiara Cersei. I am the content and digital marketing manager here at Atlas, and so excited to be with you all as always and every month. Listen, guys, we have some really exciting things coming up. Before we start the webinar, I wanted to just share with you all, if you have not checked out our events page, I'll put it in the chat on Facebook as well as here in our Zoom call. But you got to check out our events. We have some really cool events coming up, and we want you all to be a part of them. So on October 1st, we have our virtual training for our testimonial tool that we just launched. Not sure of how many of you all have checked out our new testimonial portal, but it is phenomenal. And I'm so excited for all of you all to be able to jump in and take full advantage of that, creating beautiful testimonials at with your integration with Company Cam. It's super sweet and super slick. So be sure to jump in there and take advantage of that. And then also, speaking of supplementing, we have a supplementing boot camp coming up with our partners at Art of the Supplement. That's going to be October 7th, which is coming up in just a week or so. It's going to be at 1 p.m. So be sure to jump in and get registered for that as well, so that you can make sure that you know what you need to know when it comes to supplementing and paying yourself and making sure that you're putting everything correctly in your tools. So today I'm super excited, guys, because we're going to be sharing with you our Supplementing Essentials Part 2 series. We were really privileged to be able to record this with John Dye from Art of the Supplement, with Michael Gogan from Company Cam. We had Troy Clymer with Balance Claims and John Wood from Green Klein Wood and Law. So put stuff in the chat. We'll be taking questions as always each month, but power-packed series here. And without further ado, let's get it started.
Hey Atlas Pros, John Dye here with Art of the Supplement, and I'm really excited to be with you guys to talk about claims supplementing today. We have some amazing guests that are going to discuss a lot of topics, including compliance, documentation, working with a third-party administrator, and a whole lot more. Our guests today include Troy Clymer, who is the CFO of Balance Claims, the nation's largest third-party claims administration company. We also have Michael Gogan from Company Cam. If you guys don't know who Company Cam is, you really got to figure it out because these guys are amazing. And we also have our good friend, attorney John Wood from Green, Klein, and Wood Trial Lawyers. And he's going to really explain a lot of the compliance things. So without further ado, let's get started. I wanted to start this off by talking a little bit about compliance. Because if you're doing things and you're supplementing and you're dealing with claims, it's really, really important to be compliant. And the big issue we see a lot of is UPPA. So I'm going to let you talk about that a little bit and give contractors some tips and things about being compliant in the world of supplementing.
Sure. Well, I'd say as previously serving as general counsel for a company, before I did insurance litigation full time, that the best business strategy for a business owner is a compliant one. If you're not compliant, the best marketing, the best operations, all that will come unraveled because of regulatory risk or your contracts will be challenged and potentially voided. So the first thing you need to do as a business owner is to make sure that your business model is compliant with all applicable law. Now, if you're in the insurance restoration industry, you will be tempted to negotiate insurance claims. If you're out there on roofs meeting with representatives from the insurance company, you will be exposed to the risk of that comes with negotiating insurance claims. And most jurisdictions, what I'm talking about is UPPA, the unauthorized practice of public adjusting. Essentially, the profession of public adjusting is a licensed industry, licensed by the insurance commissioner in most jurisdictions. It is statutorily carved out from the practice of law, and the unauthorized practice of law is most of the time a felony. So in those jurisdictions that have statutory regulatory frameworks for the practice of public insurance adjusting, if you are negotiating claims or effectuating the settlement of a claim, that would be to venture into the unauthorized practice of law, which is a felony. So know the difference between negotiating a claim as a restoration contractor and supplementing a claim. That is an important distinction. Supplementing means coverage has already been opened and you're not risking the unauthorized practice of law. And the best way to avoid treading into that is to simply work with vendors, professionals that focus on supplementing, and they have invested the time and effort to make sure that their operations are compliant. We have a supplementing company on this panel that has done that. They have specifically sought out legal counsel to make sure that their operations are compliant. So those professionals have done that work, so work with them. Alternatively, you could work with an insurance adjuster or an attorney, but that wouldn't be supplementing. Now you're in claims handling or litigation. So to focus on supplementing, work with a vendor that has done the legal research to make sure they are compliant, and also get legal counsel to make sure that you are not wading into the unauthorized practice of law.
So I hear this said a lot, especially like on the forums, the groups where contractors get on and say, hey, you know, what should we do with this situation, dealing with this, or what's your rebuttal to this to an insurance company? Do you think that's considered negotiating a claim, or is that supplementing?
It really depends. It may be negotiating, but if that roofer or that restoration contractor is getting intelligence from licensed professionals and then conveying that to their client, and the client is taking the initiative to interact with the insurance company, that is fine. As long as that restoration contractor is not undertaking to give legal advice, and if there is anything like that, they should simply be referring the client to counsel. But if they're simply informing the insured based on actual professional advice, and the insured is always authorized to negotiate their own claim. So I think that would be fine, but it really just depends on the manner in which that is done.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And there's a fine line there that contractors have to walk. And, I think it just seems like our industry as a whole has kind of gone into the indemnification game a little bit more than it should, it seems, in my opinion.
Well, I think part of that is the carriers are pushing back harder and forcing the insureds to really aggressively pursue their own claims and stand on their rights. And a lot of these insureds, they haven't any experience dealing with insurance claims. They might file one claim every 10 years at most. And so the professionals that work in this industry have a lot more knowledge, a lot more experience. They know what words to use, and they know how to present a claim. And so it's certainly tempting. There's a discussion happening in terms of regulatory reform and ways that we could soften the blow of UPPA enforcement so that restoration contractors are not being criminalized for trying to help policyholders that need help if they can't get help from a PA or from an attorney. But for the time being, it's important just to know that there is a hot rail there you don't want to step over, because your contract could be voided by a court. And if you ever end up having to sue to enforce your contract, you want it to be fully compliant. You don't want it to contain any language there that commits you to an illegal practice and to give any excuse not to pay your agreement.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, John, we just recently did an episode of the American Contractor Show. We talked about AAA. Will you tell us a little bit about that and share what they're doing and what their agenda is?
Sure. The American Adjusters Association is a new nonprofit organization designed to lobby for consumer protection laws, specifically in balancing the fees paid out for proper claims investigation. In short, insureds should not have to pay the insurance company for all of the costs to investigate the claim. Right now, our premiums go towards those engineering turndown reports. It goes to the IA's salary. And then the insured has to pay a public adjuster out of pocket. That's not fair. Usually the public adjuster's fee is a consequence of the insurance company failing to investigate the loss properly in the first place. So what we're proposing is that the insurance company should have to pay the PA fee as well when it is a consequence of them mishandling the claim. Another one of our legislative priorities is to carve out some of these, what we believe are totally harmless, proper scope for roofers and restoration contractors to speak to the carrier about the scope of loss, to answer technical questions about their own work product, to talk about their observations of their damages on the claim, and that should be free from reprisal for any potential violation of unauthorized practice rules, because they're not negotiating the claim. They're simply exercising their freedom of speech and reporting on their own observations, and that should not be criminalized at all. So that's another one of the priorities of AAA.
Yeah, and I totally am a big fan of that for sure. And I know that a lot of contractors need to get on top of that, because that's a great way for them to get involved for sure. So yeah, Troy, go ahead.
One thing John talked about, and those who don't know John Wood, one of the best resources in the industry on this topic, and let me tell you why. Many of you may also know his father, Don Wood, owns Suncoast Claims, and John Wood is an attorney, right? So, you've got somebody who grew up, became a lawyer, understands the space of public adjusting in one of the trickiest states where it's a lot of regulatory compliance in Texas, now resides in Florida, right? And so has a lifetime of exposure and experience to this. And one of the things John talked about is the vertical integration of vendors in the space, and hit roundabout on the ethics and morals by which they interact. So what we're getting into now is the verticalization that's happened inside the nonprofit space on both sides of the fence of this matter over the last 3 years. And so John Wood just talked about AAA, the American Adjusters Association. So there's also another nonprofit, NAPIA. There's also the American Policyholder Association. So you see 4 nonprofits that are very robust now, all working around different areas of compliance of regulatory reform at state and federal, legal and political levels. You also have the CEFL, which is more firmly rooted in the insurance carrier space. So John, if you can elaborate just a little bit on kind of those 4 pillars of the nonprofit space and how they fit together, and how maybe a little bit, without getting too deep, on what each of their interests are and how that impacts UPPA and UPPL. I think that's a good distinction here.
Sure. Well, there are organizations that are focused primarily on public adjuster licensing. And so what they've done is a nationwide campaign to create the practice of public adjusting and to regulate what it takes to become a PA. Now, in the course of doing that, and they've been very successful, and I think the vast majority of states in the United States have adopted some form of the model public adjusting statute, and that's promulgated by the NAIC. But what's happened in the wake of that is that a lot of the public adjusters that are practicing under that regulatory regime, they don't actually get involved in small claims and the single family residential HO policies. It's a difficult business model to do that. There are reasons why they don't get involved in small claims when you're working on a contingency fee with a fee cap in many jurisdictions. It just makes it practically impossible to profit off of that. So in the course of regulating the profession of public insurance adjusting, there's actually been somewhat of a market failure created around the small losses, where you have to have a license to advocate for that policyholder, but those with a license aren't actually taking on that business. And so that's something that our organization, AAA, is trying to remedy in the form of softening the blow of UPPA enforcement, creating a carve-out perhaps, basically making sure there's a robust field of communications that are proper and not illegal under that framework, if not even a residential carve-out. But as Troy said, there are a lot of different organizations here. Most of them are in some way, shape, or form committed to advancing the interests of the insured. And that is the common denominator for all of us, is to protect the rights of the policyholder, because if their rights are eviscerated by the insurance carrier lobby, that harms them, of course, and it also creates ripple effects through our entire industry, where it is not as profitable to run a roofing company. It's not as profitable to be in the industry of helping insureds if they don't have any rights to stand on. So we are all in this together.
Yeah, I agree.
When you hit on the thread of education, right? And John talked about that earlier, John Dye, and you brought up the buzzword hot rail, right? And really what you're saying is the right way, what we're talking about is administration and supplementing done at a contractor level or by a vendor, right? How to do it compliantly. And the real thing to note here is the major organizations like Balance or Art of the Supplement provide education, outsource supplementing. It's administrative work, almost a business process outsource type of staff augmentation. It's a professional service. We're vertically integrated with the high moral, high ethic, legally licensed public adjusting firms and law firms that do it right. We're involved in all these organizations. And part of what we do, really the most important part, is provide education to contractors so they understand where the hot rails are in their state or the states they work in. And that's so important. You know, I like that term hot rail, Sean, that you brought out there, because it's not just one hot rail. If you're doing contracting in 5 states, you need to know what the hot rails are in each state, how similar, how different, be compliant, have the right legal advisement, have the right public adjusters that you're able to introduce to your policyholders, where you can just provide compliant education, and then have the right resources for that, a la Art of the Supplement, Balance, to help you in this no man's land of the residential homeowner, so you can protect your profits by supplementing internally in a hybrid model or externally, compliantly in all states, and be resourced and knowledgeable to refer claims through your vertical integrated organization to assist your policyholders by the compliance and letter of the law in those states, so they have the right resources for the right recourse. It's very important.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you on that. And that's the bottom line when it comes to supplementing, is how do we as contractors compliantly do this in a way that we are still able to protect our profits and not get burned by these insurance companies. And so I think we need to, start this conversation by really talking about what the most important part of this whole thing, this whole conversation is, which in my mind is documentation, because we're having to prove a lot of the stuff that we do through our documentation, and that's what protects us, I think, the most when it comes to supplementing. And if you're not doing that right, or you're not handling it properly, you're really possibly really being incompliant, because it's really easy to be compliant when you have the right photos, the right information, the right tools in place to actually show a carrier exactly what's going on that roof, so that you're just basically saying, hey, we're here to protect our profits. So Company Cam's here, Mike Gogan, and they have one of the best tools when it comes to documentation. So Mike, welcome to the show, man. Welcome to the Atlas Grow Pro event. So good to have you, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's talk about Company Cam, because I think this is a major thing that I can tell you right now, going through some of our customers' files and the people that I work with and I train, man, it makes such a big difference when they have Company Cam, because their files are better. They have better photos. They have more photos. They have a lot more information and data that justifies carriers' payments. So let's talk a little bit about what you guys are doing to change the world of documentation for contractors.
Yeah, you bet. So on a high level, Company Cam's a communication and documentation tool. So we were created for that contractor to basically be able to see what's going on in the field without actually having to be in the field with all of his crews. So basically the way Company Cam works is any photo that's taken is going to be sorted by GPS location. It's done in real time. So when you're talking from the claim standpoint, now you have the ability to communicate, share, with third parties such as balance claims. You can share directly to an adjuster. You can share directly to the insured to make sure that they are privy to all of the documentation. So it just really closes all the gaps and makes it so that instead of having to rely on your guys uploading or sending or bringing, chips back to the office and uploading photos that way, but it's done in real time, so that you make sure you have all of the photos, all of the notes, all of the videos, everything you need to do on that claim to make sure that it gets paid fairly is done as soon as it's captured.
Yeah, and I think it makes a big difference, because you guys have made this what used to be a difficult thing. I mean, I remember when I was a kid and my dad got his first digital camera from the company. It was like this big around, and it was a Sony that you put a floppy disk in, and he thought it was the coolest thing ever because all the adjusters had this, and that's how you used to get photos. I remember as an adjuster, one time someone gave me photos, like literal, like hard photos, and I think they're still in the glove box of my truck. I'm not kidding. I guarantee you they're still in there, because I didn't know what to do with these photos. But you guys have taken this and made it like it's seamless. It's just an easy thing to move these photos around and get this documentation out. I know at Balance, one of the big requests that our admins do is they spend time in people's Company Cam accounts requesting photos, and it's so easy to do this. But let's talk about the actual how easy it is. Like, tell me a little bit more about how this actually works from a more molecular level.
Yeah, absolutely. So you pull up to the job site, whether you're the sales guy, you're the installation team, pull into the driveway, open Company Cam up. Like I said, it's all done through GPS. So it's going to utilize the GPS in the device, and it's going to say, are you at 123 Y Street? As soon as you confirm your location, now every subsequent photo that you take is going to go straight to the cloud, and it's going to be sorted by that address. So there's no extra steps. You're on the roof, you snap a photo, you're ready to go on to the next photo. You know that photo has gone straight to the cloud. Obviously, if there's something you need to point out, which obviously in the insurance restoration game, there's a lot of things you need to draw attention to. You can go in, you can annotate right on those photos in real time, mark them up, draw attention for, homeowner, for adjuster, whoever you're working with. But it's just a really easy way, and it removes all the barriers. So when I talk to clients all the time, I tell them that it's really important to have a process in place for your team. And then it's also very, very important to have your team with the right tools, because, their job's hard enough. And if you don't give them the right tools to document and do these things, it gets skipped.
I'd love to jump in on this, because as an attorney, in one of these cases goes sideways and it ends up in litigation, one of the number one things that I have to say on a daily basis when somebody wants my legal opinion is send me the file. And I've had experience where it's forwarding one email after another of random pictures that aren't actually properly time and date stamped. They're not connected to the line items that they're asking for, it's a nightmare. And that's basically garbage in, garbage out. You've got to have a way to manage your business processes. And if you don't have a system in place internally, use the vendors to do that. So it really does matter for your own profitability as a company, but also for the whole life cycle of these insurance claims that you're properly documenting your file. And I'll say something else about that too, from a trial perspective, is the concept of spoliation of evidence. If you don't actually document the repairs that you're doing or the final closeout of the job, the finishing touches, if you don't document that, the carrier might not have to pay you for it. Because they can claim that your failure to take pictures and document the repairs constituted spoliation of evidence that prejudiced their ability to determine whether they are in fact liable for that aspect of the loss. So taking proper pictures and using a system for that and to be able to store them and identify them and share them is actually critical for getting paid at the end of the day.
Well, you said evidence, and I think that's got to be part of the way that contractors look at this. If you're expecting a third party, which an insurance company, to pay for this, and you're not showing them and communicating that to them in a way that they can understand it, you're really missing the point. This is the major difference, I believe, between insurance work and retail work. In insurance work, you have to show your work.
Right.
And that at the end of the day, that's what it is. And this is evidence. And if you're not taking the right evidence, you're missing out big time. One of the biggest things, when we travel around, Gogan, and we hear this from contractors all the time, but I always ask this question: how many photos do people take during jobs? And typically we hear, how many photos, John, you were a PA for a while. When you got a file from a contractor, how many photos were typically in that file?
Not enough, because you really should have a picture for every line item.
Right. I totally agree. It was never enough. There was never enough photos. It was never, people would say, well, I'll take 20, 30, 40 photos. But even taking quantity isn't always the answer either. Obviously, I like a lot of photos, but also quality of the photos as well. And so one of the things that we give away during our boot camps, and when I speak at a lot of events, I like to share this with people because I think it's one of the most important tools, is a sheet that I call a fulfillment sheet. And Tiara and Lauren will have this, and they'll be able to get this out to you guys. But I want to share it with all the Atlas Grow Pro people as well. And it's literally just a checklist of things to take, the photos to take when you're on the ground, the elevation photos, your ladder photos, the photos you should take on the roof. Every piece of that job should have a reason for why those photos are being taken, and then all your miscellaneous photos as well, so that you have an actual game plan when you go out and you're not just taking a bunch of random pictures. Because random photos sometimes are just as bad as not having the photo.
One of the methods that my dad would use, and he would recommend others do, is to stand in the street in front of the house where the address is painted onto the curb and just take one opening orienting picture. So you've got the address in the picture as sort of the first sort of cover photo for photo album for this. And then for every major face of the roof, every slope, you take a picture just to orient it with respect to where's north, so that when you're going through the pictures, you can actually get a sense of where you are relative to the layout of the property. So having some kind of a system in place when you're documenting the loss really helps reconstruct this later. And the carriers use this as a tactic to deny the claims. They'll send somebody out with one of those wind-up Polaroids or whatever and take a bunch of black and white pictures at a weird angle, and then they'll say, well, we're relying on our field investigators, and I don't see any damage. Of course they don't. They're trying not to see it. So your ability to document the loss in high definition with good orientation shots and everything, it really does help tell the story of the claim, and it ultimately is the insured's burden to prove the loss. So your work as a roofer is ultimately going to be used to prove the loss. It needs to be a good work product.
And also, like, another tip when it comes to documentation, I think giving those photos to the insured. Company Cam, you guys can share that link with the timeline link right with the customer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's several ways to share photos out of Company Cam, but when you're talking about sharing with the insured, the timeline link is great. It's a live link. You share it one time, and then every photo that you take is going to be available in that link for the insured to have access to use whatever they need it to use it for.
And a lot of times, them having that knowledge, for whatever reason, contractors have been so reluctant to be as transparent as possible with their homeowners. They keep a lot of that information close to their vest for some reason, but I've noticed lately it's starting to change. But with tools like this, where you're able to be as transparent and keep a policyholder involved in the process, it really makes the burden, you know, on them to basically at that point realize how badly indemnified they are at that point and what is really required to do the job. And you gotta, the more you're able to do that stuff, the better. The other thing that I really love about Company Cam too is the photo reports, the PDF photo reports. It's a click of a button. You can send 50, 60, 100 photos in just in a simple PDF that doesn't take, you know, 20 emails to send out.
Yeah, well, and if you take them in the order of your fulfillment checklist, with a click of a button, you can have that fulfillment checklist in the exact order that you provided to them, John, and there it is. It's a PDF. You can share that over, and you know, it's super easy. It's super fast, and like you said, it's instead of trying to send 2 or 3 in an email, or if you've ever tried to use Microsoft Word or, you know, Google Sheets and try to turn those into a document, it's a nightmare formatting wise. And so Company Cam just does that for you. And the one thing I would add that I've kind of skipped over is, you know, talking about sharing with that homeowner, because like, as John Wood said earlier, the homeowner can advocate, you know, they can do anything they want on the claim. If you take good video while you're up there and you're showing the damage and you're educating that homeowner throughout the process of, hey, this is the damage, these are the things that we have to fix, it just arms them when they're having conversations with their adjuster with knowledge. And the more information you can provide them, which you can easily do in video, I think the better off you are.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So, hey,
if it's not documented, it didn't happen. Let me just say that. Sorry to interrupt, but if it's not documented in the claim file, it did not happen.
Again, there's a lot of talk about putting the claim file together, John. Let's talk about how easy that is with Company Cam. Big announcement came out this week for those of you in the industry that missed it. And I'll let Michael say it, but the video is all about Company Cam is now what?
Free.
Say it again. Say it again.
Free. It's free.
Processes and tools to help you build claim files the right way so they can be sent up your vertical integrated ladder. That's what we're going to do for you at Balance. Assemble your claim files. Some people call it estimating. It's admin work. And then along the way, we're going to teach you the systems and processes to do this.
Yeah, let's
free to start out with. And if you start using it, all of a sudden, 6 months down the road, you're laying in systems and processes, and your photo report overlays with your estimate, whether it's cost plus, fixed bid, an Exactimate, whatever estimating style you like, it doesn't matter. You're providing that to your homeowner and educating them, right? And that's important. And then if something does require going to a public adjuster or a lawyer, needs to come out of supplementing internally or out of Balance, who's doing this for you, with you, it's easy to hand the file off. You know, and John Wood, talk about how much more you prefer working with what I would call qualified clients who have legal claims versus you having, and it keeps the cost down, right? Because you don't have to hire people to go assemble the file, correct?
Yeah, it really does matter. My law firm, Green, Klein, and Wood, all we do is sue insurance companies. But we don't work with everybody, and partly because there's only so many resources. So we're going to focus our efforts, and I'm sure every other law firm in this space has the same sentiment. We're going to focus our efforts on working with those contractors and adjusters who themselves put a lot of resources into their business. And they're doing their best by the client. They're doing it in a compliant way so that when we take that case into the courtroom, our client has clean hands, and we're presenting a properly assembled claim file that really should have been paid back in the front end, right? And the only reason we're here now is because the carrier's been breaking the law. And so a properly assembled file, that might determine whether you can get any law firm at all to help your client. Because if you can't present to them, this is everything that's happened to date, then they might not be able to tell you when the statute of limitations runs, when did the cause of action accrue, and so forth. So having a properly documented file, it really does matter. And you know, birds of a feather flock together. And so if you want to work with the law firm that does a good job, you need to work with a supplementing company or an adjusting company that does a good job too.
Right. And I totally agree with that.
The right vendors, right? John Dye, you talk about this a lot. Like, let's not, John's our host today on this panel, but one of the most knowledgeable people in the nation on this topic. Another one, Steve Patrick. And John's more supplementing level, and Steve's more the general adjusting, public adjusting level. John, talk a little bit about that when you work together with Company Cam and Balance through Art of the Supplement to teach people proper claims administration and how to build systems and processes, or what questions to look for in their third party to ensure they're partnering with the right outsourced supplementing company.
Well, at the end of the day, whether it's a public adjuster or a supplement company, the differences should really never be that different. All we're really talking about when it comes to supplementing is construction standards and evidence and proof and just real world construction guidelines, and how to actually apply that in an insurance scenario, which is a little bit different because we're talking about component based pricing versus what, a lot of contractors are used to doing. And so, having all these different, having all the stuff in place and all these different tools and resources ready to go for you as a contractor is going to help you no matter what. And it's going to make this whole, the whole being able to move the claim from a supplementing status to now we need to move this into a legal or public adjuster status so much easier. And what I wanted to get into today was, the claims administration and using a third party, because not everyone wants to do it in-house. If you want to do it in-house, I'd love to show you how, and we could spend a whole lot of time talking about that. But at the end of the day, no matter how you cut it, when you start to run the numbers and you start to do anything of scale or volume, most contractors find that in-house is usually not as attractive when you look at the ebbs and flows of business and all the different factors that go into it. Being able to partner with a third party, while in the past has been really frustrating for a lot of companies, there's now some really good options. And Troy, I've only been with Balance for the last few months, and I can tell you, being from this world and seeing exactly how Balance works from the inside out now, you guys are, head and shoulders above everyone else in the space. But it's because you guys have built a different product than what I think any other supplementing company has. I want to talk about why Balance is so special, but not just that, what other contractors need to look at when they're looking for a good claims administration partner, which is really what a supplement company like Balance is.
It's like any other relationship that you seek to entertain, right? I mean, John, you've got a wonderful wife, good friend of mine. I mean, you're a business partner of mine. What did you look for when you decided that you were interested in falling in love and getting married, right?
Someone that makes me better.
Exactly, right? And someone who does things right that you can trust, right? Yep. Who's associated with good people, right?
Right.
And the people that you have around you in business, especially vendors, get how your systems and processes and scale turns out, right? The larger you get as a contractor, the more important this is, right? Just to bring some good humor in, right? We found out in the beginning of this call that the very first company Cam was a Polaroid and a Sharpie marker, right? And printed photos inside a metal clipboard 15 years ago, right? So how did we get to where we're at now, right? You go talk with Eric Armstrong at Quick, talk with Heath Hicks at Avco, talk with the folks at Cornerstone, Apple, CMR, these large top 100 roofing companies. They're all our clients, right? Why are they doing business with Balance? And there's some other great supplementing firms out there, right? Because we're vertically integrated with the right people, right? So we bring to bear systems and processes immediately into your business, or dance to the skip of your loo, so to speak, and figure out how to do that compliantly in 50 states at scale across, I don't know, John, you've been a partner at Balance for about a year now, right? So 10,000 claims this year, probably residential, 10,000 no man's land claims, residential homeowner claims, sub 30 grand, handled compliantly in every state, right?
That's insane.
Quickly. We have the scale. Why? Because we struggled to get here. Like you're going to do, if you're a contractor and you're tuning into this now, or you're in year 3, okay? You need to learn the process so you can do it in-house. You need to know how to outsource it. You need to know John Wood. You need to go to events. You need to get involved with your manufacturer and Atlas. They are involved in the Catalyst group, right? which is the leading nonprofit in the space for the vendors, right? So all the leading vendors of every niche that provide services to you as a contractor are in this nonprofit, working together to make the industry a better ecosystem, to bring you the resources, because they need each other's resources to properly service their clients and delight you, teach you how to handle claims effectively, so you can operate your business at scale, right? Because if you want to be in 3 markets and have 15 salespeople and operations infrastructure and be in business 3 to 20 years, you want to be the next Paul Reed, Northwest Roofing, right? You have to build systems and processes into your business, and you can't do it by yourself. And systems and processes are about getting the people that work with you, work for you in leadership, middle management, line management, production level staff, sales staff, and administration on the same page, and something that's transferable, right? And then you're gonna have to upgrade that rig as you grow, right? And there's a lot to consider. So that is what supplementing is about.
I want to ask you though, what's one of the dangers when you're choosing a supplement company to work with? Because what are some of the ways that contractors expose themselves unnecessarily when they work with third-party supplement companies?
I would say, first off, you should look, if you're doing business with an outsourced supplementing company or an outsourced supplement person, you should inquire about if they're associated with the American Policyholder Association or the American Adjuster Association, if they're in the Catalyst group, right? If they're spending money with these nonprofits, paying dues to involve themselves there to stay educated and compliant, that tells you something, that they're not a fly-by-night company, right? People can tell you whatever you want to hear in a sales process, but if you go ask the other people in the marketplace about them, you'll find out what you really need to hear, right? And who they're associated with is important. And there's great options. Balance is the big box outsourced supplementing company. We've been in business 6 years. We have 50 employees. We got, I don't know, John, how big's our office? 18,000 square feet, right? You got 3 studios in there, right? We have a corporation going on. We are an independent adjusting firm for contractors that sells all kinds of other professional services as well. We help people run their businesses, right? That's not always the best fit for every contracting company, especially roofing company. We're talking specific type of contractors. And there are some good small individual boutique supplementing companies out there. There's some really bad ones, right? That are just going to steal money from you and give everything a bad reputation. Well,
and that's the part right there. Because I mean, there's a lot of companies that are going to be able to do this for you, and there's some great options out there. I'm not saying balance is the only option. I totally agree with you on that. But I think that what you just said is really, really important for contractors to realize, is that when you are working with a third-party administration company, that company is in essence a extension of you in your business. And so whatever they do, they are doing on your behalf. They're working on their behalf.
It's important to know. When you're working with Balance, we're you, right? You're outsourcing an administrative task to us. And if we see that we fire clients weekly who are trying to get us to break the law for them. John, you're involved in this. And then they end up signing up for your classes to learn how to do it right. Maybe we'll let them back next year, right? But I mean, I'm not going to prison because you want to steal money on somebody's $20,000 homeowner claim in Florida.
Yeah, that's good for you to bring that up, Troy, because everyone should keep in mind that submitting a false claim to an insurance company to cause them to pay it is basically a felony in every jurisdiction in the United States. It's felony insurance fraud. It's a white-collar crime. Every single insurance company has a special investigations unit. If they think that they may be dealing with a fraudulent claim, they refer the whole claim file over to SIU. In fact, they have to have an SIU per state law in order to bear risk in the state. And also defense attorneys, they love to take on what they call unscrupulous contractors that are inflating claims or asking for things that are not actually due. And so the insurance policy dictates this here. A lot of times it says paid or incurred, okay? And if you've either paid for the work to be done and so therefore it needs to be reimbursed, or you've incurred that cost, meaning the work's done, and you now owe a debt to the roofer, that would be an incurred cost. However, some of these policies simply say paid. And so if you are submitting a supplement and it hasn't actually been paid and the policy requires it to be paid, that could be a problem. Or if you're including line items in the supplement that you didn't actually install, that would be a problem. And so the best professionals in this industry know better than to commit insurance fraud. That's a business-ending mistake. Don't do it. And like
this is a great point. Here's the thing, John. Most young I got 3 texts today that came straight to me that I pushed down into my sales organization that are people who are working at a client of ours or left a client. They're starting their own roofing company. They're going to become a CEO for the first time, right? You see a lot of contractors go from top sales rep to CEO in 6 months, right? One season to the next, okay? And I'm not insinuating that everybody's doing this on purpose. Neither is John. You don't know what you don't know, okay? And staying up with, you're not an insurance. Some people do. There are a lot of very knowledgeable claims people that sell in this space, okay? And people have different skill sets that make them successful in that job, right? But most of what we see and send back is an opportunity for education to help an organization have the realization of how they need to put claim files together and build these systems and processes into their organization, into their people, their processes, and their systems. So they have the right knowledge, vendors, and training mechanism at their company to scale accordingly across the first 2 years, which are so hard. And we have a lot of success stories with us. Eads Roofing is a great one here in Indianapolis. Cornerstone, Hunter Ballew's company. I remember when Hunter started his company, the first year he sent every claim to balance since Genesis, right, of his company. And he's got lawyers and public adjusters and everything's been done right. But it was hard at the beginning. And that's what John's getting at, is we send thousands of files back to roofing companies in the course of the year. And there are some bad actors. There's some bad acting supplement companies, some bad acting contractors, and some bad acting insurance adjusters. You're gonna see it. That's why there's a mechanism for compliance, right, with the American Policyholder Association, whose job is to prosecute criminal fraud perpetrated by insurance carriers. So there is a police force for you as a contractor if you see fraud perpetrated by an insurance company or any of their third-party administrators. You can check out the American Policyholder Association at www.apassociation.org. Okay, you should get involved there if you're a contractor. I strongly encourage that.
Thank you so much.
The insurance company has the same thing.
Right.
You need to be aware of that, right? They have the CEFL, and John can add in here if I'm missing any other organizations that they have in their alphabet soup of compliance nonprofits, who are trying to prosecute you and educate politicians at the state, federal, and municipal level that contractors are committing this type of fraud. So don't do it, because right now it's on blast.
Yeah, you're right.
I was going to say, I think one thing that we're maybe failing to hit on, it's really important for the CEO, like the contractor, to know these things and stay up on these things. That's huge. But we're talking about scaled companies, large companies. I think it's equally important that you're training your team, because you can say as a contractor, yeah, we're doing things the right way. I stay up on all of these things. But if you're not investing in your team and training them and making sure that they know these things, everything you know is wasted, because there's no way as you scale that you can have your hands in everything. And so to make sure that your files are done correctly, to make sure that you're doing these things in line with the law, you've got to train your team and make sure that they're doing things the right way also.
But this is interesting, John and John, talk a little bit about what Atlas does in that space. I mean, that's part of what this panel's about, really what GrowPro and this year's, Atlas Premier Contractor events focus on, is providing training and learning resources to contractors for their people, processes, and systems.
Well, this event itself is a huge representation of that, I believe. And Atlas is going above and beyond when they partner with their contractors to help make sure that they are staying up to date with all these topics and getting the best possible information for them. And matter of fact, if you guys are watching this, make sure to type in the chat box, and we'll try to answer any questions that you guys have when it comes to being compliant to the insurance space, to supplementing. We want to make sure that we can give you guys as much data as we can, because that's what this whole event is about. And these events like this are staples for Atlas. I feel like with the Atlas Life and all the stuff that they've got going on, the blog posts, the podcast, they're putting out as much education as possible and doing such a great job of it. I'm so proud to be able to have Atlas on the back of our truck, you know, and deal with what we get to do with you guys, because you guys are doing things the right way. And Atlas contractors are typically a good representation of that.
Well, Atlas is providing education through every outside mechanism as well. They've been involved in the Catalyst Group as a major sponsor since Genesis, and helping us put on educational events. And we're a 501c6 nonprofit education corporation, right? They sponsor the American Contractor Show. They're heavily involved with Company Cam on their events, virtual and in person, right? So outreach is important, you know, and as we move towards the Q&A here, you know, we hit on this a couple of times. You heard all the panelists talk about it. The importance of getting out and learning what you need to do to be compliant and surrounding yourself with the right people and vendors to do so. And Atlas, as a manufacturer that you're working with, has all those resources kind of organized for you. So make sure you're voicing that to the reps and the people that you're interacting with at Atlas, because they can really get you plugged in.
For sure. Thank you so much, Troy, for joining us today. Gogan, thank you so much, brother.
Hey, absolutely. I think this was an awesome panel, great information. My big thing is build those processes, train your staff, make sure you're compliant.
Absolutely.
And Company Cam is free.
My last word would be that if you prepare every single one of your files as if it were going to trial, that's the best way to run your business, because it'll make sure that the fewest number of your claims actually have to go into the litigation process to get resolved.
Yep. I totally agree with that. Thank you so much, John, for being here today. And panel, you guys have all been amazing. Tiara, Lauren, thank you guys for making this possible, and the rest of the Atlas team. We're going to kick it back to Tiara and Lauren, and I guess we got a really cool segment getting ready to come up, and with our good friend Ryan Shantz. And he's going to be talking about lead generation. And you guys, thank you so much for being with us. I hope this was helpful for you guys and got you guys some great information. Thanks.
What's up?
Hey.
Hey, everyone. This is awesome. I'm sorry we've been sitting back here watching this, and it's pretty, it's been a lot of fun. And I'm actually on the road right now, and I know you guys are all back in your offices, but we're in the ACS truck heading to the Roofers in Recovery Call-a-thon that's going on tomorrow. So it's kind of cool to be here. But this was an awesome discussion, and I'm sure that contractors have a lot of questions, and there's got to be some areas that are just extremely frustrating for contractors. UPPA, we talked about that, but that's always been like the biggest thing that people worry about. I think we covered it pretty well, though, that documentation is the best way to protect yourself, because at that point you're just discussing realities and what the actual damage is, and you're not getting into the claim or the policy or all the things that are going to get you in hot water. And so that's a massively important part of this. And you know, John, you did a great job talking about that in discussing the UPPA aspect of all this.
Thanks, John. Yeah, like it or not, it's just important to know where those boundaries are so that you don't inadvertently invite regulatory risk, or, as I said, potentially even invalidate a contract because it contains an illegal term. And we've seen that happen in Texas. Actually, a really big named roofing company had a clause in their contract that said that they would essentially assist with the insurance claim, and that contract has been invalidated. So every single job that they contracted under that agreement, it's void, and they have to pay the money back to their customer. So it's a disgorgement consequence, which is kind of like a civil death penalty because of how expensive that is.
Well, that's what's interesting about this litigation, and we're seeing some of this starting to happen. And that's the scary part about it, is if they find out your contract and your advertising is in violation of UPPA, you're right. They can completely tear apart your entire organization and nullify your contracts all in all. So let me ask you this, though. Do you think that contractors are taking the wrong cases or possibly, because I think when you set a precedent like this on a legal level, right, that has really, really far-reaching consequences more than just to that particular case.
Correct.
So obviously talking to an attorney is massively important, having a good attorney on your side to handle those situations. But, that's a scary situation when another contractor could potentially harm your business with a bad case.
That's right. The ruling in that case is the Lawnsmith roofing case. Really does send a shockwave through the industry, and it itself could change the behavior of other roofers, even if they weren't a party to that case, because it means that if your contract has similar problematic language in it, that your company may suffer the same fate. And so it changes behavior in a big way. And I think one way that the restoration contractors in Texas have responded to this is that they have modified their terms, they've sought counsel, and they've also started working increasingly with supplementing companies, as well as public insurance adjusters, as well as attorneys from the outside of their involvement in a project. So they will get a contract signed for the roof repairs, and then they will bring in, through a professional referral, either a supplementing company or PA or an attorney, somebody that's licensed and qualified to operate in that supplementing space, so that the roofers are really just insulating themselves from that risk, and they can focus on getting jobs selling new clients and doing their restoration.
Well, John, that's an important point. Yeah. We've got another question that we'll get to in a second about recommending having an in-house supplementing team and how to know when to make the switch. But I think the important thing to note here with the Lawnsmith case, and if you're in a highly regulated state like Texas, Florida, Minnesota, Indiana, there's some others, make sure you have your contracts reviewed by an attorney in your state that specializes in contract review. There are some that do just that, right? And there's some good ones we can get into. You can get with John Wood or me or John outside of the call or in the comments. We can get to them. There's trial law firms that they're not going to review your contracts, right? But there are attorneys that are in this layer cake in these states that work with the trial law firms and do contract law. Karen Ensley's one, if you know her, she's heavily involved in the APA. She works very closely with John Wood and all of us, right? Another one would be Dvorak Law, right? And they're in Iowa. These are two that come to mind. But make sure you have your marketing materials reviewed as well. It's not just your contracts that the state regulatory agencies, the Texas TIA is going to look at your truck wraps, your door hangers, the marketing materials that you're using. And if they find language in there that, in their opinion, goes against the UPPA or UPPL laws of that state, they will freeze your ability to utilize those materials. I've seen contractors have their websites taken down until then you have to pay significant amounts of money to get all the copy on your website and branding redone. So it's very important that you make sure you understand. We talked about hot wires in this session, that you understand what it is per state, that hot rail, and that not just your contracts, but all of your marketing materials are compliant with what they need to be in that state. And the best way to ensure that so is to have an attorney who's qualified to understand what the current regulations are that are being enforced in that state and how they impact your business. And then make sure your content, your verbiage across the board is compliant. So we have another question about, do you recommend having a supplementing team? John and I get this a lot, right, at Balance. So people are always astounded to hear my answer, which is absolutely, you should have an in-house supplementing team, right? They're like, well, you're the outsourced supplementing firm. We also are trying to train you so you know how to incorporate this profit center into your business. At Balance Claims, we're really three companies. We're like a small conglomerate. Balance Claims is our third-party administration firm. We're the largest outsourcing firm in the nation for estimating and supplementing. But we also own Art of the Supplement, which is headed up by John Dye. And we're the most scaled specialty training resource for working with contractors to educate them on how to build estimating and supplementing departments into their company from the start, and specifically how to work hand in hand with a third-party administrator. We work with some of the largest contractors in the nation at Balance. This year, we've handled claims. We're going to be about 10,000 residential claims this year. And right now, we've produced work in 38 states. Over the course of our 6 years of business, we've produced work in 48 of the 50 states. We generally see a healthy relationship for us with a scaled client is that we will see 40 to 60% of their workload will come to Balance. And we're very keen on educating our customers to have the systems and processes in their company. It's also much easier for us as a third party to work with you if you have a coordinator in your business that's like the hub point for us versus our administrative team, our sales and account management team, our estimators and supplementers having to deal with each one of your 15 salespeople and the owner and the manager individually. Now, we do that. Don't get me wrong. We have hundreds of clients, and they're all in a different profile. But the ideal scenario to work towards, in my opinion, is to where you have the ability at your organization to handle the appropriate percentage of files in-house that fit right into your workflow, and then you're utilizing a third-party administrator like Balance for the files that you don't have capacity to do, and that we're able to work within your systems and processes along with your inside team, and then also provide you through our Art of the Supplement brand or through our media company and our show, American Contractor Show, the right information, education, training, and tutelage to get your people up to speed so everybody's on the same page of music. John, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I mean, we got a boot camp coming up that is a great opportunity for contractors to actually learn this process and really build it into their companies. That's what the boot camps are all about, especially if you're just getting started in supplementing in-house, or even if you are already supplementing in-house and want to make sure that you are doing things the right way. We did get a special offer just for this event for Atlas contractors that are diamond and platinum contractors. We normally charge $349 for this. We're doing it for $249 for you guys though. So you guys can go to learntosupplement.com/Atlas and get that special. I think there's a link somewhere. I think it's part of the link for the Art of the Supplement stuff. So we'd love to have you guys and hopefully help you guys learn that. And then we have a master class that gets really deep into it if you really want to train on the entire process, that brings in our entire staff that has years of experience and thousands of claims of experience and teaches you exactly what we do internally. So it's a pretty complex deal. So, but yeah, Gogan, man, talk to us, bro. we got like a couple seconds left here, and I'm sorry.
Hey, it's all right. So I will just give everyone the way to contact me if they do have questions. You give the attorney and Troy Climber the mic, and you have 10 minutes. It's going to be hard to get the mic back. But you can contact me with Michael at companycam.com. If you want to check Company Cam out, companycam.com/Atlas. We have a great promo there. And hit me up if you guys have any questions. And huge shout out to Atlas for putting this all together. And John, thanks for coordinating this panel.
Appreciate you guys. Appreciate John Wood so much. Troy.
Us base teachers love.
All right. Thank you guys so much. That is a power-packed panel. Welcome back. So thank you so much to John and Troy, Gogan, and John Wood for that wealth of information. I just think that, you know, supplementing is so important, making sure that you know what you're doing in terms of next steps. Leverage these resources. If you are out there and you don't know what the next step is, I want to just encourage you to go to atlasroofing.com/pro. We'll put it in the chat for you on Facebook as well as via this Zoom webinar so that you can get engaged and find out all of these partners that we featured actually have landing pages in our portal and give exclusive discounts. And so one of the ones that John just mentioned was the Art of the Supplement Bootcamp. It's going to be happening on October 7th, and he's offered a premier price. So be sure to log into your Atlas Pro portal to be able to get registered today for that. And I'm looking to see if anyone else has any other questions. If not, I know we are right past 11, so I really appreciate you guys holding on a few minutes later. And until next month, keep living, roofing, and playing together, and stay safe out there. Thanks, guys.